Dealing with misogyny, to borrow a Splatoon-centered idea, is like being trapped in enemy ink. It's all around you, you're struggling to get out of it, but every step makes you panic. Your three teammates are nowhere to be seen. Or worse, they've been repeatedly ignoring the point of the game for the last 4 minutes, and you feel utterly alone. And it's not just one game. It's something you've had to experience over and over and over and over. And after this has become your new normal, you start to wonder, is this somehow my fault? I'm here to tell you and myself that no, this is absolutely not your fault. This is clearly a metaphor, but it does sum up how I felt in various points of my life as a woman in both my long history of being a member of various gaming communities, as well as just living my life as a woman, from my personal to my professional life. It's important to point out that what has been discussed in the Splatoon community over the past week, and hopefully what will continue to be discussed going forward, is not unique to Splatoon. I will not be going into specific details of individuals, because I know how extra distressing it can be to feel like you have no control over what's happening in the fallout after a traumatic event. As a member of the Splatoon community, as someone who streams regularly and has really enjoyed playing the game, and wants to see it continue to grow as we head towards Splatoon 3, and as someone who's just so tired and frankly angry at how female and non-binary players are treated, I'm making this video not only to inform people on how to do better, but more importantly, how to talk to people who are feeling hurt, angry, and perhaps even a little lost in the community. There will be content warnings later on with timestamps on where to skip to for anyone who does not want to hear any details of harassment. If at any point you're feeling overwhelmed, the Games and Online Harassment Hotline is a free text message-based confidential emotional support hotline for everyone in the gaming community. They can offer emotional support or help find you resources. I'll have more information on resources later in the video. Background. What is happening in the Splatoon community? On August 3rd, 8 people put out a document about a competitive Splatoon player known in the community concerning their interactions with him over the years and his sexual harassment. These 8 people, 2 of which wanted to remain anonymous, but I'm choosing not to share any of their names for their own privacy, shared screenshots of private conversations he had with them where he repeatedly made these people uncomfortable. Content warning for an overview of his comments. If you would like to not hear any of this information, you can skip to this timestamp here. This player repeatedly asked for nude pictures from the people in the document, even after they told him no. Some people mentioned they'd even been warned about him upon joining a server he was in. He frequently claims his comments to be joking in nature, a common excuse in our culture I'll get to later, and frequently disrespects boundaries. On another occasion, during a voice call for a game, he made jokes about a player needing to be in the kitchen. To another player, he frequently called her not smart enough to use a specific weapon and even DM'd her to ask her what her race was. Like, seriously. He seriously did that. Some women and non-binary people in the Splatoon community started sharing their experiences on Twitter following this. Seeing someone share their story often makes others feel safer in sharing their story as well, which is why stories about harassment and abuse tend to come out around the same time. There's a certain safety in numbers. A part of the terrifying part of harassment is making you feel utterly alone, and the potential repercussions encourage victims to stay silent. Several of the people in this document also left the Splatoon scene, not always wholly due to their interactions with the player in question, but it seemed to be a factor. Rissa, a competitive player and commentator, shared her thoughts in a Twitter thread that spread around, and she went on Negus' podcast to talk about harassment in the Splatoon community. I'll link the video because Rissa goes into detail about the situation, the toxicity in certain Discord servers around the competitive Splatoon community, and the experience a lot of women have when playing games. I highly recommend listening to the podcast. Why are there so few women in high-level competitive Splatoon? Going back to the metaphor from the beginning, it's terrifying to feel alone without anyone to back you up, and once you've experienced it repeatedly, It communicates to you that you aren't welcome. If every time you joined a voice call or a voice chat in a game and you heard someone make a comment about an aspect of yourself, would you want to keep participating? I've attended several panels led by Uplift, an organization formed in response to accounts in 2014 about sexual and emotional abuse perpetrated by many YouTube creators. I've repeatedly heard stories from women and LGBTQIA+ people about feeling pushed out of gaming spaces from tabletop to LARP to video games. The common denominator we've all felt is being told we're not wanted. In my own experience, I will say that Splatoon has not been as bad as others. Overwatch, Valorant. Whew. But let me ask you something. Look at the last few world tournaments. How many women were competing? Look at the top voices in Splatoon. How many belong to women? But we're here. We play Splatoon too, competitive or otherwise. We've got Milana, Vicvian, Rissa, Latias, and many more I could mention. The Girls Duo Cup just happened too. Plus, I've had an amazing time playing with women on Spawn Point's stream team, and I've gotta say that I've only felt respected by the team as a whole, regardless of gender. Looking specifically at Splatoon, we have the issue of men's voices being the loudest and most accessible. Because men make up the majority of the content creators in the community, certain issues in the community just aren't talked about much other than in whisper networks. Women look to one another for safety, choosing to play with one another to avoid potential misogyny. Because it's not fun, and we deserve to have fun playing our favorite games. And just due to how people value YouTube or Twitch content, the already established people are seen as more trustworthy or more credible. This is not to say that many of the men with great success in these areas don't deserve where they're at. I follow several of them and learn a lot from them. But when the deck is stacked against you due to societal expectations as to what is an acceptable hobby for girls and women, when you're made to feel unwelcome in voice chats, or your gameplay is frequently critiqued without being asked for, you start to ask yourself, is this community bringing me joy? Do I need to leave? There is no single right answer for this, and I don't fault the women who have stepped away from the competitive Splatoon community after having a hard time. I stepped away from Overwatch for similar reasons, but one thing I've learned in therapy is that one form of controlling the situation is just walking away from it. And sometimes that's your only option. But I can hear you. Rose, I don't understand what the big deal is. Why do women feel unwelcome? Picture a Rainmaker game. You've got your three teammates. We'll call them Resources, Acceptance, and Community. On the other side, your opponents are Self-Doubt, Gatekeeping, Harassment, and Silence. Now, if you've played any solo queue, I know you don't have to imagine very hard about having teammates who are not particularly helpful. In this situation, you're the one carrying the Rainmaker to the goal. You have so much potential. Your shots can obliterate people. But getting to the goal on your own is not going to be easy. It's not impossible. There are going to be a lot of obstacles in your path, and any potential thing could lead you to stopping short. Even being without one of these teammates is going to make your life more difficult. Resources include pickup scrims, coaching, team practice, being given docs or videos about specific improvements or callouts to learn. In a professional setting, these would also include equal pay, mentorship, and promotions. Acceptance would be encouragement from your teammates, sportsmanship, being given a seat at the table, as the saying goes. It's you being shown that you matter, and everyone should matter. Lastly, the big one is community. It's hard to reach a goal totally alone. When we're stuck in a rut, whether it be a personal issue or an issue of stagnating in the game, it's helpful to have someone to talk to, either to feel heard or to get some actionable help. In this scenario, if even one teammate is gone, your chances of reaching the goal are much slimmer. So you've got the Rainmaker. Resources is off doing its own thing. You haven't seen it in ages. What the heck kind of game is it playing? Meanwhile, Acceptance just took on the opposition all by itself and ate it. Community has been totally ignoring the objective and is off on the opposite side of the map and hasn't really acknowledged your handling of the Rainmaker in the slightest. Self-doubt stares you down, and you remember every snarky comment you got in a stream, in a voice chat, after a tournament. You managed to stick a Rainmaker shot at it, and that's one obstacle down. But now gatekeeping is following up. Every time you've gotten into a gaming community, you've heard things like, games aren't for you. You often don't see yourself represented in games, or when you do, it's as a joke, a mechanic, or to be objectified. When you don't know something, others act like you're dumb due to your gender. And harassment is there too. As gatekeeping is pushing you away from the goal, harassment is there making you uncomfortable. You don't know if you want to keep playing anymore, but you're doing your best to keep going and to not give up. When you splat gatekeeping, silence is there. Or it's silence's cousin, excuses, which often comes in the form of, it was just a joke, or can't you take a joke, or why don't you have a thicker skin? As harassment sends a visceral, disgusting feeling down your spine, you notice how silence acts. By doing nothing. It was too much without your team to ink a path for yourself to the goal and to take out the obstacles in the way. You don't make it. And this happens over and over again. You decide this isn't very fun anymore. So you stop. Harassment in games, the wider picture. As I mentioned earlier, this is far from just a Splatoon problem. It's a culture problem. Fixing one part will not fix the whole, because a lifetime of being beaten down by everything from a small comment to a particular glance to seeing newer coworkers who are men be promoted before you and all the other women on your team is just exhausting. Here are just a few ways in which things are structured against us. The industry. When women decide to go into software development, game development design, or a number of careers within the games industry, there are many roadblocks in their way. We are frequently the minority in the classroom. While I didn't go to college for programming, I did take classes in middle school and high school, and I was frequently the only girl in the room. When that becomes the norm, you notice you're out of place, or at least that's how I felt. If you stick with it, graduate, get a job in the games industry, you'll likely have a male boss, because men are more likely to be promoted. You'll probably be making less money than your male coworkers at the same level, because as a new hire, you have no idea what the standard pay is, and few people are sharing salary information. And it's just the norm, unfortunately, in our society for often women to make less money due to feeling pressured not to push for raises or not to negotiate for money, because you'll be seen as too pushy or bossy, which are traits that are actually respected in men, but discouraged in women. Many industry networking events are at bars, where women already frequently feel like they must have their guard up due to a fear of being drugged, and this isn't a misplaced fear. Right now, Activision Blizzard are being sued by the state of California's Department of Fair Employment and Housing for discriminating against female employees, and their investigation found many instances of sexual harassment. I'll link some articles in the description if you want to read up on these events. A lot of women formerly of Blizzard have spoken up on Twitter about their experiences and why they ultimately decided it was better for them to quit or just to leave the industry entirely. Games journalism has issues as well. This I can speak on more personally, as I was a journalist during the peak of Gamergate. I don't think I need to go into detail about the frequent harassment many of us faced just for being women who liked video games and wanted the culture to improve. I also worked E3 as press. Overall, it was a fantastic experience, but I didn't feel comfortable enough for my safety to go to any of the after parties, and I once again noticed how I was often the only woman in the room during interviews. After the publisher of the site I used to write for told me that I just needed to hear out the Gamergaters as he treated the whole thing as an intellectual debate that I just needed to stop being so emotional about, my passion for the industry died, and I quit a few months later. It just wasn't worth it. While those professional experiences happen, there's also a lot that the community and society does to have a constant hum of misogyny in the background. When I join a voice call and someone immediately picks up on my feminine voice and username, I have to prepare myself for the frankly overdone, "go back to the kitchen" comments. Sometimes I notice more aggression or more sass from a male teammate as he points out something I should have done differently. And when I stream, I experience far more backseating than the average male streamer, because there's a perception that women just aren't as good at video games. When I've politely asked viewers to rephrase how they're giving advice, or told them I'm noticing my own mistakes and I'm not soliciting feedback right now, a majority of the time they react aggressively. Because how dare a woman enforce her boundaries? Or, I was only trying to help. I've even had the, okay, we'll keep sucking at the game comments more times than I can count on my two hands. And on top of that, when many of us finally feel comfortable talking about our negative experiences, we see male members of the community characterizing this all as drama, which serves to normalize and diminish what we're going through. When we ask for accountability, we're told to stop canceling someone. This isn't about canceling. This is about consequences for people's actions. We have too many people who hide behind their comments just being a joke. We see this idea of it's a joke being a frequent excuse. It's sort of one of the very common things that I run into when I enforce my boundaries. For example, in the streaming example, if I point out to somebody, hey, I know I made a mistake there, but I'm really not looking for feedback at this time. I'm just enjoying playing a game and chatting with my community. Because they feel threatened, I suppose, that's my idea of what I think is happening, they start to double down and act defensively, like, hey, I was just joking. Don't get on me about this. I didn't do anything wrong. And it's a defense mechanism. And it's unfortunately a very, very normalized one to double down on this idea of it's just a joke and that all jokes must be sacred and that we can't criticize jokes because if you didn't laugh, then you just weren't in on the joke. But, buddy, it's not a joke if it isn't funny. For my fellow ladies, non-binary pals, and allies, if you have the emotional bandwidth for it at the moment, I suggest asking the person to explain the joke to you. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't really understand. Can you explain it? They often know it actually wasn't a joke in the first place. Like I said, this is a defense mechanism. Or when they're forced to actually walk through the thought processes, they'll actually start feeling uncomfortable. Give it a try sometime. But I really do feel frustrated every time I see a male content creator trivializing these issues for views or giving half-baked apologies for their actions. And I'm gonna have to point you to the next section for those of you who are falling into this. But first, one more thing for this section. Life is pretty exhausting for all of us, but as a woman, it's really exhausting. And that goes even more so for Black women and women of color. I can't think of a time I wasn't consistently tired since 2016. American politics from the federal to my own state level of New York right now are tiring. Interestingly, as I was recording this video, actually, Governor Cuomo resigned, so I guess there's some good news. Anyway, I got catcalled frequently as a 13-year-old by old men in loud pickup trucks. Men have grabbed me at dances and not respected me when I said no, and then turned to my boyfriend on a separate occasion when they noticed him and apologized not to me, but to him. If I'm walking alone, I'm frequently reduced to my body through comments by male strangers walking past me. If you're a man, you cannot understand how exhausting and frustrating it is to have to go through this. But even so, I'm asking you to listen. What can be done to fix this? Men need to listen to us when we talk about these issues. Men need to acknowledge that they're not the experts on this, and they need to defer to us on how we want them to help. And also acknowledge that people are going to want help in different ways. Being an ally doesn't mean you'll be perfect, because none of us are, but it does mean that you show up every day, being ready to help as needed. Helping can look like speaking out in a voice call when someone says something gross. Quick responses are more likely to do the trick rather than waiting until later. Swift consequences are more likely to change behavior. You don't need to go on a rant about it either. I personally feel uncomfortable when that happens. A quick, hey, we don't say that here, cut it out, is to the point but still firm. Should the transgressor choose to continue, then you need to tell him that you'll remove him from the game, the server, etc., if his behavior does not change. Why is this important for men to do? Because a man talking down to us isn't going to take our opinions seriously, and the second we show anger, we're ridiculed further. Checking in after the event is also a good way to show the victim that you care. If you didn't feel comfortable speaking up right afterward, ask the victim if they're okay, especially if you're already friends. If you're not close, even just a, hey, that was a crappy thing that X did, can go a long way in helping the victim not feel so alone. But if you are in a space where you feel like you won't be in danger by speaking up, I really, really urge male allies to speak up in the moment. In terms of events, I'd love to see more support for the Girls Duo Cup and other events for women, plus promotion of female and non-binary streamers and content creators. We usually have to work twice as hard to get half as much recognition, so interacting with our content keeps us going. Plus, it's never a bad thing to have more diverse creators around. And visibility is important. Even when I was feeling down about how there were no women on the teams for the Splatoon 2 World Championship Finals in 2019, it's always a joy to see Ashley commentating. I'm so happy to see more women commentating for matches, and I hope one day I'll feel confident enough to do the same. Plus, it'd be a huge boon to see more tournaments, both online and in person, have stricter policies against harassment. I've found trash talking to be way more aggressive from men, and it's insulting to listen to or even to overhear. Tournament organizers should be at the forefront of enforcing a culture of respect. And yes, that means men who are known to sexually harass or demean people should not be allowed to TO or to compete, at least for a specific duration of time until they've proven they've changed their behavior. If you've been watching this video and you want to help, I urge you to have private conversations with your friends or people you look up to if you find them participating in a culture of misogyny, even when it comes to small comments. Men can be a good example of masculinity for others by portraying respect and sensitivity. And if you're a man who's hurt someone, and let's be real here, we've all hurt someone, learn how to apologize. Learn to remove "if I offended you" from your statement. Take the time to acknowledge what you did wrong and what you'll be doing in the future to rectify it. Treat this like the problem it is. It's not a joke. But fortunately, problems have solutions, and it's up to all of us to fix it. Resources for people going through a crisis. If you've experienced sexual assault in the Splatoon community or elsewhere, I need you to tell yourself that it wasn't okay. It wasn't okay. Nothing you did or didn't do makes you deserve it. Even if it doesn't sound true at first, keep saying it. Trauma isn't something that can be fully recognized in one night. I would not be able to survive life in general if it weren't for the other women in my life who understand what it's like. If you can find other girls or women to play with, I really recommend it. If you use Twitch, the platform now has tags, and you can filter what you're browsing by a tag, such as the woman tag or the she/her tag. Make friends in the community, and if you ever get a bad feeling about someone, don't be afraid to prioritize your safety over their feelings. If you need a third party to talk to, I really do recommend therapy if it's a resource that you can access. There are trauma-informed therapists, particularly ones who are familiar with sexual harassment and abuse, who can help you work through your emotions. If that's inaccessible to you, I recommend the Games and Online Harassment Hotline, which is for all people within the gaming community, from developers to streamers to players. If you're feeling isolated and like you don't have anyone to turn to, the hotline is a resource that can give you a space to talk about what you're feeling, which helps you structure your thoughts in a way that makes it easier for yourself to understand and confront. And they can give you other resources as well. Text support to 23368. However, I will say that this hotline is not available 24/7, so it's only available at these times, so just keep that in mind. Otherwise, I'll list a few other hotline resources that are available 24/7. RAINN, RAINN, is a common one, so that'll be down below. I've got a bunch of organizations to shout out with resources for various things, so buckle up. Uplift, as I mentioned earlier, at uplifttogether.org has many resources ranging from meeting an online friend IRL, talks on consent and coercion, power dynamics between fans and creators, bystander intervention, and online harassment. I'll link the resources page for you to check out for yourself. And if they're ever at a con near you, you know when we can safely go to conventions again. I really recommend attending their panels. I've also chatted with them at MagFest in the Dealers Hall, and they really care about creating respectful, safe spaces for all, and they understand how things work online. Queer Women of Esports has a mentorship program for women interested in the esports industry, and they have several other programs on the way, including an affiliate program for queer content creators and competitors. If you worry things are going to be more serious, I've used Crash Override's resources on DIY security. Their Account Security 101 guide is important for anyone, and they also have guides on what to do after being doxxed. I've felt isolated from a community before, not Splatoon and not due to sexual harassment, although there was sexual harassment happening behind the scenes, and I've had to filter my online experience heavily. I've had to block a lot of people for my mental health, and if you're being stalked, it means having to stay vigilant about alt accounts. Plus, it's hard to block someone on Discord by username alone due to the discriminator, that's the 4-digit number after the pound symbol. Plus, blocking someone on Discord means they can still see your messages in a server, even if you can't see theirs. So it's hard to feel totally safe on the platform, and that's where a lot of this abuse is happening. I do really hope this changes in the future and Discord changes how blocking works. It's something that they really need to improve on. And last of all, some days are harder than others. Be kind to yourself. Your mental health and well-being are more important than any video game. If you need to talk, my DMs on Twitter are open. And if you're comfortable sharing your experiences, I encourage you to do so either in the comments in this video or on your Twitter account, or even with a circle of friends on your Discord. We're stronger together. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to stick around and see more. And geez, it feels so weird to say that after such a heavy talk, but I really do appreciate all the support. I put some more fun Splatoon videos on the back burner to think about this topic for a while, since it's a personal one to me in more ways than one. I also stream on Twitch, where it's my goal to build a community that cultivates kindness and respect while I continually work on improving my Splatoon gameplay, but without unsolicited comments. I'll be thinking of you all. Please take care. And let's make this community live up to the perception of being a welcoming one to all. Thanks for watching.